So today's webinar is going to be on BIM 360 Field with the focus on the equipment and the equipment tracking. So our agenda basically is to go through what does that mean, a little bit of basics about BIM 360 Field if you don't know already, the benefits of using the equipment tools inside of BIM 360 Field, how to actually go through the process of setting this up, because depending on where your equipment is coming from, there are a couple of different methods of doing this. Then, how do we use this? What do we use it for? What are really the benefits of doing this? Again, in the field, not just in using the tools. So, BIM 360 Field for equipment. BIM 360 Field, again, if you don't know, is a field data management service solution. So it's completely web-based. There's a mobile app that allows you to utilize this both in the field when you're connected to the internet as well as when you're not connected to the internet. It allows you to use visual graphics to understand the data. You can also track things. You can take actual photographs of the site, annotate them, upload that, and get that back and forth to everybody. And your BIM, in this case the BIM model, can be updated based on the data from the field. Again, the main thing for the BIM is that that information. That's actually what we're utilizing with field. We're taking advantage of the information, both from the model and as well as from the personnel out in the field doing the construction, and making sure everything is coordinated. So, how are we doing this? What are we doing it with? We can use this for quality programs, safety programs, using it as a documents to the field solution. So if you have somebody who likes to attach everything to emails, another person who likes Bussa, another one who maybe likes Dropbox, you want to actually bring everything together so that everything is in a single coordinated location. That way it's very easy to track and very easy to manage. In addition to that, we can utilize this for the equipment, commissioning, handover, FM operations. And we take advantage of that, again, with our online library. And the benefit of this also is it's not just a location where we can store content. We can actually mark up things like our floor plans as well. So if you're out in the field, you need to put a push pin down and say, okay, this has a problem, we need to fix this. You can do that online, and again, it syncs back and forth with everybody. We can create checklists, task lists with everything, and also connect that to our things like our equipment and analytical reporting. Again, I mentioned the BIM, the I. One of the benefits of using Revit is because just about everything in there is quantifiable. You can run a schedule and see where things are happening. Same thing here, it's that I that we're working with. We can very quickly make reports, schedules, graphics, and generate that based on what's actually happening in the field with our projects. From a day-to-day, week-to-week, or even project-to-project basis, we can make sure that things are actually doing what we need them to do. We end up doing this with our field BIM model and coordination tools. Now, in today's one, we're going to be focusing on the equipment portion, not so much on the commissioning standpoint. Randy Boynes is going to be following up with another webinar that focuses specifically on the commissioning aspect of the equipment. Again, this one here is going to be focusing on the setup and actually putting that together. So, our equipment. Now, the equipment tracking benefits, what we can actually use this for is pretty much anything. Now, when most people think of equipment tracking for BIM 360 Field, they tend to think of MEP elements. So we're tracking air handling units, VAV boxes, lights, but in reality, it's pretty much anything. If you wanted to track doors, door hardware, furniture, any element of the models or of the projects, we can actually utilize this for. If you wanted to track shipment pallets, not a problem, we can do that. Now, part of this is we can assign things to these pieces of equipment. So what I mean by that is we can create checklists, we can assign task lists, issues, so barcoding of systems. So a couple of examples of this. You have a door that's listed as equipment. That door has been installed, and the checklist with that, they run through the room, yep, everything's installed, looks good. Later in the week, somebody out during another installation maybe bangs into it, scratches it, damages it. Now you can actually assign another issue to that object. So you can track the life cycle of that element in the project. You can see what's going on. You can make sure that everything is actually getting taken care of throughout that process. And if you need to make sure that maybe similar equipment is installed in the right location, this has barcoding as part of it. So I can actually scan that in the field and see the information and say, okay, this one needs to go here, this one needs to go there, and actually track that as it does that. And because we can actually connect to our BIM models, and some people hate that term, but still, essentially what I can do is load that up and actually view that on the iPad through BIM 360 Field and coordinate back and forth. So if I assign more data in there, that gets synced back to, say, Revit or Navisworks. Now, the benefits of this, again, a lot of the things tend to come down to time and money, any project. So when you finish the end of any one phase of the construction process, whether it's the planning, design, construction itself, you always tend to move on from there to a different phase. Now, in many cases, what you have prior to BIM is you'd have this sawtooth diagram, where you're losing time to redo things. Now, when you're going from design to construction, maybe there's certain data that's already in there. But definitely at the end of construction, there's a lot of information that has been generated. So if you're actually doing something for an owner, set of as-builts, you're putting together binders and manuals, warranty information, maintenance information, rather than handing them, okay, here's a roll of drawings, and here's a couple of boxes of the books that you'll need to manage your facility. Now what you can end up doing is having this whole setup online, all pre-done, and they can actually find the equipment, they can track the equipment, and the information relative to that equipment is already connected to it. There's not going to be any searching through boxes to try to find that specific piece of information that you need. Now, in terms of setting things up for commissioning, or in just general coordination, we have our design process where we go from design all the way through FM and ownership, and typically what we have is a couple of different tools as a part of this. So we'll end up having our design model, construction model. That's usually going to be maybe something like Revit that has all the geometry and data. From there we can coordinate that with other tools, other programs, and that might be in something like Navisworks or now actually BIM 360 Glue. The thing is, BIM 360 Field can actually tie into all of that, and it can also tie back into the facility maintenance software. So that way, as we're doing our work, we're not losing any of that information. We're able to collaborate and coordinate with the other tools and the different users that might be out there. Now, issue tracking comes into this because, again, we might have an issue or checklist, punch list for our friends over in the UK, a snag list. We might have things like that that we want to assign to different pieces of equipment. So, okay, we have an issue. We're going to open one up and we're going to assign it to that element. So it could be something like a subcontractor completes work, equipment arrives on site, equipment is damaged. It could be anything. So once we actually say that, okay, this has been done, now typically somebody needs to go out and inspect that just to confirm that, yes, this has in fact been finished, this has been repaired, this is okay. And then from that, if it fails the inspection, that is left open. So somebody still has to go back and actually do that. And it's assigned and you can track that. And if it is passed, great. Passes it, that gets closed. That becomes a part of the project record. So we can track how long did it take for these issues to get taken care of. So you can actually see that and make sure that, okay, these people are doing things in a very quick manner. Great, awesome. Or these people, they're getting things done, but it's taking a lot longer than they said it would or than it should. Again, those kind of things you can track, you can report, and you can actually see. Yeah. So that's about it for the PowerPoint. What we're actually going to do now is we're going to switch over and look at the actual software and the service itself, so we can give you a better idea of what this is really going to happen. There we go. Alrighty. So what we're looking at right now is Autodesk BIM 360 Field. This is a completely web-based process that allows us to actually go online from any browser and actually view the information on our project. Now what I'm looking at right now is a blank project, not really anything here. This is why everything says sample on it. So what I can do here is I can always look at things like my library, my reports, photos, and equipment. And in this case, my project has no equipment in it yet. Now, when I look at this brand new project, I can do a couple of things. I can always add equipment, line by line, or what I could always do is import equipment. So let's say, you know what, you're using this for your first project. You're not going to go crazy and work with anybody that has, they're giving you BIM or anything. Or maybe the project that you're using it, maybe they're not even using that. They're doing everything in CAD. This still allows me to import information from, say, Excel spreadsheets. And the nice thing is, if I say download a sample, this gives me a sample file that has the formatting that I need to work with. So all I need to do is open this up, look at this, and it gives me an understanding. These are some example elements underneath it. If I want, I can delete these out and then fill it in with whatever information I need based on the actual equipment in use. If I already have that equipment in an Excel file, I can either reformat it to match this or copy paste it in. Once that's all finished, I just import that in, and that will actually populate my equipment list that I can then track and view in the field. Now, that's if I am not going to coordinate with anything from, Revit or Navisworks, say. If I am going to coordinate with those tools, though, what I need to do is do a little bit of setup first. So for that, I'm going to go into Setup. From there, I'm going to be looking at my project, and I can actually look at my equipment and my library. Those are the two things that I'm going to be working with. So first, I'm going to look at my library, and what I currently have is a folder structure. What I will need to do is I need to go to Import, and this is going to either install or open up another program. This is just a field importer tool. So right now what we're looking at is my library, blank, but I have a couple of folders in here. In order to get these folders, or indeed any other content up, I need to run this importer, choose which project I'm actually working with. So in this case I'll go, there we go, that one. And then I can actually look through my folder hierarchy and upload this. So you can see right here I have folder structure and these 3 folders. Now the key thing to remember with this is that even though I can choose any kind of folder structure I want to upload, in order for this to actually upload successfully, what I need to actually do is have something listed in that folder. Now the reason that is that it won't upload an empty folder. So some people will put in like a little bit of a JPEG. I tend to put in a small text file. So whether it says read me, delete me, upload me, it doesn't matter. As long as there's something in that folder that will allow it to be uploaded. Having done that, I'll have my folder structure. And then I can come in here and choose the file that I would like to be uploaded. And then I can come here and say next. Tell it where I want that to be uploaded. Next again. Tells me, okay, you've got one file, however, what's the size, and you're putting it here. So, tell it to copy files. And this is actually going to essentially package however many files you have. There we go. And then we'll actually upload that. Once this actually finishes uploading and it finishes syncing into the actual service, you'll end up getting an email that lets you know that it's up there, and then you can actually start to work with it. So while this uploads, I'm going to go back into here, and instead of going into the library, what I'm going to do is go back into Setup, and then click on Equipment. Now, this is currently empty, because I have not actually synchronized any BIM files yet. It's in the process. But what I can actually do is put things together so that it's all organized when that's done. I can go to my Types ribbon and set up what type of equipment do I want to track. Would I like to have furniture? Would I like to have mechanical, plumbing, architectural equipment, things maybe like doors, lighting, security systems, things like that. So I end up creating the hierarchy that I'd like to assign my content to. From there, I can set up any status I might want to assign that. So again, you can see some examples of that status. So this has been ordered, this has been delivered, this is acceptable, this is unacceptable. And you'll see 2 things here, standard and custom fields. By the time you see this video, that will probably be renamed to be standard parameters and custom parameters, to be more in line with the terminology used in both Revit and Navisworks. So, these are showing you the typical ones that BIM 360 Field uses. Custom fields are available to actually create whatever kind of parameter that you would like to utilize in field. So if there's data that I'd like to track that currently is not listed here, all I need to do is go to Custom Fields and set that up. And then I can actually utilize that and do whatever work I'd like to do with it. Good. So now that that's set up, if I look back at my library, I can dial in, take a look at my models, look in here, and probably in the process of, but once it's finished, I'll have my file listed in here. Now, that's part 1. Once my file is uploaded, and I've actually gone through and organized all my equipment settings, I still have one last thing I have to do. Notice it doesn't say no BIM files uploaded, it says synced. What I actually need to do is go to Revit, click on my BIM 360 field add-in, and tell it that I would actually like it to synchronize my project file. Now, one thing you might notice is that there's nothing in here that tells me what project I'd like to upload or synchronize with. The key thing to remember here is whatever the last project that I was logged into was, that is what Revit will synchronize with. So if you feel like, okay, I've just uploaded the file to here, let me work on another project while this is uploading, you want to make sure that you're active in the project that's important to Revit to sync to. So when I go here, say, okay, this is going to look at the contents of my model, and it's now going to synchronize this with BIM 360 Field. So it's going through all the different kind of elements, looking at the properties, setting things up, and that's actually going to synchronize. Now, once my file has been uploaded, and this has actually synchronized, then I can actually create the connections that I'd like between the two different services. So this is finishing up, setting up that information. And once that's finished, then what I'll actually be able to do is come in here, and I'll see a little box here that shows my BIM 360 model that has actually been uploaded. There we go. Now at the moment I'm looking at the file that I uploaded. I've just synchronized, so now it shows up. And I have the ability to create things called field equipment sets. Now what it's showing me here are unmapped sets. Think of unmapped categories from Revit. So these are all the different categories of objects that I had active in that Revit file that I synchronized. So if I wanted to track my doors, I can click on doors, and there's currently 20 different parameters in Revit that I can actually sync with. So these are the different categories of elements that I have. So if I click on something, say like mechanical equipment, click on that, and I can see the parameters in Revit on the left, and the fields or parameters in BIM 360 Field on the right. Now, what happens here is I click on an object from Revit, and I can sync it or link it to a parameter inside of Field. So what this means, I see the arrow going to the right, the information in Revit is synchronized with BIM 360 Field. If I see something on the right that I want to be synchronized back the other direction, get that there too, there we go. So let's say I want the description that might be written in the field to be synced back to the model. Okay, sync to model. This does not create a link to a Revit parameter. What it does is it actually creates a new parameter in Revit. So when I did that synchronization, there was a little checkbox there. When I check that, it actually makes it more of a round trip in terms of where the information is going to and from. So I can pick information that can be filled out on an iPad on the site, synchronized to the BIM 360 Field web service, and that could automatically, well not automatically, but that can be synchronized back to our Revit model just by telling it to sync. And again, I can create whatever parameters in here I'd like that just don't exist yet. I can always create new custom ones. So I'll say done here. I'll see I have one equipment set, because I only made one for mechanical. I could make as many as I want. And then the last thing for this, if I go back into Revit and tell it to sync one more time. Now that it actually understands, okay, this is tied to this is tied to that, when I sync it this time, it will start to populate and fill in all those fields. Now, while this does this, what I'm actually going to do is switch to Navisworks for a second. Now, when I'm synchronizing inside of Revit, what it's looking at are the categories of objects. So I really don't have to do anything special. I just say, okay, I'd like you to synchronize and go. But if what you're going to be synchronizing with is Navisworks, so people have given you the files, you've coordinated them, or you want to upload from here instead, what you would actually need to do is create sets. Now, it doesn't matter in Navisworks if you're using search sets or selection sets, but you would need to make a set. So that way when you upload this to Field, it understands how it needs to break things down. Now you might say, well, yeah, but we're sending things into Navisworks from Revit anyway. Shouldn't the categories be there? That's true. But the thing is, because Navisworks could use information from a multitude of different programs, you could have things in there from Revit, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, MicroStation, Vectorworks, SketchUp. So categories don't coordinate between all of them. But if I create a search set or selection set, that's something that's consistent. So the data could be coming from 5 different things, But in terms of Navisworks, it's organized into however you've placed it. So essentially what I end up doing is just coming over, either making something like a selection set, or you just go into the find items, tell it what you'd like to find and how you'd like to find it, and then you can tell it to make a search set. Once that's done, same thing, BIM 360 field, tell it to send to sync, and you're up to date. So that other sync process is finished. So now what I can do is go back to my project, click on my equipment, and there's all the equipment that I just uploaded and synchronized from that specific Revit model. And if I wanted to see more information or less information up here, I can always customize my view to actually see the information that I feel is relevant to what I'm trying to work on. So that covers a couple of different methods of synchronizing our work. And again, this isn't a one-stop shop. As I edit information here, I can always modify it from the web service. I could add issues, attachments, comments, track the history of this element. I could do this from the field, actually on my iPad or from any other web-based browser. And that information can then be synchronized back to my Revit models. And anytime that something in the model changes, if I've deleted specific objects or added new objects, then I would open up that file importer again and work with that. So what have we looked at today? So we went over an overview of what BIM 360 Field's equipment tracking is. We looked at a little bit of its benefits, such as being able to track information both from something from Revit or Navisworks, or something from as simple as Excel. I can also set this up to work with different project files, different file sizes, different methods of organization or layout, and we can use this for a lot of things. Just tracking it on site, tracking information that might be set up for punch lists, closeouts, or also for things like facility management. And again, one of our follow-up webinars that Randy Boynes will be doing, that will focus on the specific aspect of using our equipment for things like setting them up for facility management, so for commissioning. So that's one of our future ones. We hope you look at it, and we hope it works well for you. And like anything else, main goal is to make sure that you're profitable, that things are being done very well, very high quality, and also safely, and to make sure that you have more repeatable business. So by reducing risk, by tracking your equipment, by making sure that things aren't falling through the cracks, we're trying to make sure that things are done better, faster, and works well for both you and your clients. And if you'd like to learn any more, we have upcoming webinars. Again, the Field for Safety is November 22nd. The Field for Commissioning is going to be December 10th. We also have on-demand webinars that you can check out. You can always look at all of our webinars that have already been done and presentations on youtube.com/Microdesk channel. And if you'd like to register for any of our webinars, please feel free to go to microdesk.com/events-webinars. And I'll look forward to working with you again. If there's any problems or questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We have a 1-800 number, our email at webinars@microdesk.com, and we're connected to a bunch of different social sites. Again, thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. Have a great day.